Do you know what I've noticed since cruising has resumed? Not only are people making the same mistakes as before, but now we've got some new ones that even experienced cruisers are making. Hi there, I'm Ilana from the website lifewellcruise.com. Welcome back to my channel. Now I'm actually a little bit riled up as I start this video because I was writing out my points and I realized there are some mistakes that cruisers continue to make, and they've been made for a while. I'll mention them briefly, but I'm going to share with you some new mistakes that I see people making now, and really some other mistakes that I couldn't really quite put my finger on. But as I was, researching this and writing it out, I realized what it is. And a couple of them are going to surprise you. Maybe you're making some of those mistakes. Maybe I've made some of those mistakes. We're going to talk about it in today's video. But before I get started, I did want to mention that if you like this video, if you find it helpful, informative, or enjoyable in any way, then please do give the video a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And of course, please subscribe to the channel with your notifications on if you haven't done so already. Okay, let's get started. Mistake number one, not knowing your cruise line protocols. Now, in reality, if you're watching this video, I'm assuming that you are very well informed. So probably this is not you, but we've all watched videos or read articles about people that are showing up at the cruise terminal and they didn't know they needed to have a vaccine, or they didn't know about the testing requirements, or they didn't know they had to wear a mask, or any of the different protocols on their cruise line. Now, to be fair, I know that things have been changing, but a lot of things have actually kind of, at least the main gist of it, have really remained the same. And at the very least, I think we all do need to know that we have to read the emails that come from our cruise line at this time. We have to go on the website and we have to check what the protocols are. The fact is, when we arrive at the cruise terminal, we have to know what the protocols are for our cruise ship. Okay, rant over. On to point number two, booking non-refundable deposits. Now, this is something that a lot of people do. They book their non-refundable deposits. And I should say, I don't mean that booking non-refundable deposits in itself is a mistake, but booking a non-refundable deposit and then complaining that you canceled your cruise and that the cruise line will not give back your non-refundable deposit, well, that is when it does become a problem. Because of course, when you book a non-refundable deposit, whether it's with a cruise line or whether it's with a hotel or with an airline, it is not refundable. That is the point. And usually it is less expensive to book a non-refundable deposit on a cruise than to book a refundable deposit. Now, I can tell you that in my case, I don't like those non-refundable deposits. I like to have flexibility, especially if I'm booking several months or a year before my cruise. So I usually completely avoid those non-refundable deposits, but I have booked them before. Usually when I do book a non-refundable deposit for certain cruise lines, I do that when I'm very close to the final payment because it really just doesn't make much of a difference. Now, just to mention, the way non-refundable deposits work on cruise lines oftentimes is that, let's say your deposit is $500, a portion of that, let's say $100, if you do cancel, is actually like waived, almost like a fee. But the rest of it, so for an example, $400 would remain as like a future cruise credit, and you have a certain amount of time to use it. So it's not all lost, and non-refundable deposits are not always bad, but it is knowing and understanding that if you do want to cancel, that's the whole point. It's non-refundable. It does stay with the cruise line, and there are terms and conditions. Mistake number three, and this one is so avoidable, it's flying in on the same day as your cruise. Now, whenever possible, don't fly in the same day as your cruise. Now, I know there are some circumstances where you can't help it. Maybe it's work related or something else. There's no flight on another day. So that does sometimes happen, but fly in as early as possible. But know that you are definitely taking a risk. Even if you've done this 10 times before, it can happen on the 11th cruise. Believe me, I have seen it before, especially if you're flying during a time of year where there can be weather-related problems, but there can be mechanical problems. There could be all sorts of things. You just never know. Now, I will tell you something that we've had happen before. We were supposed to be leaving on our cruise. The ship was supposed to be sailing away. I believe it was at 5 p.m. Well, a couple of days before the cruise, maybe like 3 days before the cruise, we got an email from the cruise line saying that they were changing the sail away time to, I believe it was 3:30. It was a full hour and a half earlier than the sail away time. So the message from the cruise line was to make sure to arrive at the cruise port a little bit earlier, because even the all aboard time was going to be earlier than first expected. And these are all things that can happen. So you just want to avoid this. Get a hotel the night before. Wake up early in the morning time and you'll have peace of mind as you board your cruise on the first day. Number 4. Now this next mistake is made equally by experienced cruisers and new cruisers, but in 2 completely different ways. So let me explain. So it is booking the wrong cruise or the wrong cruise line. Now, when people are new at cruising, it's pretty understandable because maybe you don't know what to expect. And there really is quite a big difference between a Carnival cruise and a Holland America cruise, for example. So you definitely want to do your research. And if you are watching cruise videos right now, and if you're reading cruise blogs, and if you're looking at Facebook groups for information or researching and maybe using a travel agent, that is all something that is really good. But experienced cruisers do something a little bit different. Sometimes what we are doing, and I've been guilty of this myself, is booking the wrong cruise line simply because we are booking the same cruise line that we may have booked for years. Now, what I mean is sometimes we're loyal to one cruise line, and it doesn't mean that that cruise line is not good. But over the years, we change, and the cruise line changes. And maybe what we loved about that cruise line, maybe the experience that we really loved 5 or 10 years ago is not the same experience that we want now. So rather than going on a cruise and complaining about it and thinking, oh no, they're not as good as they were a few years ago, and the food isn't as good, and the experience isn't as good, maybe we do every few years have to kind of look up, look around and see what else is out there that we can try that can be an experience that better fits where we are right now at this point in our lives. Now, please let me know if you agree or if you disagree with that point. And either way, if you are enjoying this video, please give it a big thumbs up right now because it goes a long way with the YouTube algorithm and I appreciate it. Mistake number 5, and I see people make this mistake all the time, and that is booking the absolute cheapest cruise. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm against saving money on a cruise. You know, I've made lots of videos about cruising on a budget. I definitely think we should save money where we can, but you don't want to book the cheapest cruise if it's not the experience that you want to have. So what amenities you'll have on the cruise ship, what the itinerary is, what the cruise line is, what the food is like, all of that is so much more important than the price. Big mistake. Cruisers, stop making that. Don't book based on price alone. Number 6, it's such a bad mistake, but it's not buying travel insurance. Now, I have to say, I really thought that once cruising had resumed, we wouldn't see this anymore, that people were going on cruises and not having travel insurance, because especially at this time, we know all of the different things that can happen and how expensive it can be if you are quarantined somewhere and you have to pay for several nights hotel, or even worse, the medical expenses if you are somewhere else and you need to have medical treatment or you need to be flown back to your home country. This is really so much more expensive than the cost of a travel insurance policy. So the way I like to think about it is that just include the cost of your travel insurance as if it's part of your cruise. And when you think about it, if you go to the casino, it's not more money usually than how much you might lose in a night or two at the casino. It's not more money than a shore excursion. So it's always money well spent when you are buying travel insurance. Number 7, not complaining the right way on a cruise. Now, of course, I don't mean that you should be complaining on a cruise, but there is a right way and a wrong way to complain. Now, one of the wrong ways that I think, unfortunately, people really make this mistake far too often is they get off the cruise and then they think once they're off the cruise ship, they're going to maybe write an email to the cruise line or they're going to write a letter to their travel agent. And the reality is it's going to fall on deaf ears if your cruise is finished already, and especially if it wasn't like a major problem. So if you have a problem, like maybe it's a plumbing problem on the cruise, maybe the food isn't to your liking, maybe the cabin attendant isn't cleaning your cabin as well as you think it should be cleaned, all of those things can honestly be very well dealt with while you're on the cruise. And the crew really do want you to be happy. They want their tips. They want their gratuities as well. Deal with it while you're on your cruise. Obviously, be polite, but be persistent if there is an issue. And one thing I would caution you as well, try to stay off of social media and complain there rather than dealing with it right there with guest services while you're on a cruise. Now, I can tell you, we've had some small issues while we're on a cruise, and we've always just dealt with it directly with the cabin attendant or the waiter, or we've gone over to guest services and we've discreetly mentioned it. Everything's been solved. We did cruise with friends a few years ago, and they had a problem with their cabin, and it was actually something where it was smelling a little bit musty. They had their carpets cleaned, they had fans put in. Nothing really helped, and there were no other cabins to move them to. So when they did kind of complain about it and really say that they weren't satisfied, they did get a nice substantial onboard credit, which for them, well, made it feel like, okay, it was a solution to their problem. Now, if you've ever had a problem on a cruise and if it was solved or wasn't solved, please let me know your experience in the comments below. Now, since we're on the subject of mistakes that cruisers make, I am going to leave a video right after this one all about the mistakes that I have made, some of them very embarrassing, on a cruise in the past. And the point is that I've made these mistakes and I'm sharing them with you so that you don't make these same mistakes as well. Now, I hope that you did like the video, and if you did, please do give it a big thumbs up. I appreciate it, and please subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'd love to have you here within the Lifewell Cruise community. Bye for now, and happy cruising.